The next perspective is one we have not heard yet. It's from a young person, a student at UAB, a student leader at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. His name is William Anderson. William.
I didn't really know how I was going to be speaking tonight, so I wrote 2 pages worth of stuff here, and I'm going to feel a little bit redundant reading it, so I'm just going to kind of look at it while I'm talking, and I hope you don't mind me glancing down at this paper. Basically, I was asked to speak from the perspective of a UAB student about what I thought about transit reform and what I thought it would mean for UAB students, what I thought it would mean for students here in Birmingham. And the thing I thought about first when I was sitting there and I was writing was most UAB students don't utilize transit and they don't know anything about it. They wouldn't know where the bus stops were, and I think that they would look quite confused if you asked them what a bus route was in Birmingham. So I think that that's the first thing that has to happen as far as UAB students with transit. First, there needs to be education because, as it was brought up earlier, most students here in Birmingham, I think, kind of view transit as something that's for poor people. So, and college students are poor, so we definitely should know more about it. But there's class issues and there's race issues. There's a lot of things that are related to transit that UAB students need to know about. A lot of education that we need to have. And this disconnect between the suburbs and the inner city is something that I think is contributing a lot to the lack of education amongst UAB students about transit. So I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in Inverness, which is down 280 on Valleydale Road, and I have to do that drive every single day. And so you can imagine what I'm dealing with in the morning and how horrible it is. But growing up over the mountain in Inverness, in school, I remember hearing kids say all the time, my parents told me don't go to Birmingham. Birmingham's dangerous. I remember hearing kids say, you know, Birmingham is somewhere you need to stay away from. It was like this mystical place. It was like another planet and it was dangerous. You weren't supposed to go there. And my parents gave me some education on Birmingham. I was downtown with them a lot. So I got some education about Birmingham and how to get around. I used to think that I knew how to get around the city when I was 10 years old. I used to tell my parents that they could drop me off anywhere in the city and I could find my way home. I used to say that to them all the time in the car. But this is not something that my classmates shared. When they were in Birmingham, it was only briefly there. There was never any real education from parents on Birmingham, the inner city, and how to get around. And if they were in Birmingham, they were riding around in a car. So I want to put a huge emphasis on education amongst UAB students and amongst students, period, all grade levels. But one thing that I can appreciate about UAB, and something that I don't think has been brought up yet, is UAB puts an emphasis on environmental change and environmental, progressiveness here in Birmingham, doing things right for the environment. One article I thought about when I was writing was something I read a couple of years ago in the Birmingham Business Journal. And it was talking about how Birmingham is the most polluted city in the South as far as air. We have the dirtiest air in the entire South. Okay? So thinking about that, I started saying, this ties into transit reform as well. We have the dirtiest air. I have some numbers here for you from the article I found. Birmingham was rated worst in the South for pollution, with high enough pollution levels to put more than 400,000 children and adults directly at risk for heart and lung disease. $5 billion have been lost in economic investment because contracts had to be rejected due to dirty air. So I think that everybody in the room realizes right now that a lot of that pollution, a lot of those emissions are coming from cars. think about if we didn't all have to drive, if UAB students weren't driving around all the time, how much those emissions would be reduced on a day-to-day basis. If we could just hop on a bus, if we could hop on a rail, no matter what it was, if we weren't driving our cars around all the time, it would significantly protect the environment and make a great change for the environment. I mean, the dirtiest city in the South as far as air, that is a title that I think that we should all be ashamed of. And we're talking about protecting our health when we're talking about transit form. That's something that I think that we should all think about. And talking to our faculty, our classmates at UAB, I think is something that's going to be important for we students. A lot of my classmates came, and I'm very happy that they're here, and some are in the back filming for a class. And something that we need to think about is what are we going to do as students to make sure that our fellow students know what's going on? Because as young people, we should be here way more than anybody else, I feel like. Because we are the generation that's going to be coming up. We're the generation that's going to be making change. And whenever I come to events in Birmingham, I always hope to see more young people here because we're the generation that's going to be bringing the message, throughout our years as we grow. So these are just some things that I think that we should think about. UAB ranks 3rd in the nation for diversity. And with so many students coming from around the world, a lot of them are commuting. A lot of them get to Birmingham and they don't have a car. So when they get to Birmingham, I would think that it would be a pretty big disappointment to get here and then have to get a car. Because you can't get on the bus. I mean, what are you going to do? You pretty much are forced to get a car. You can get a bike if you want to. But what if you want to go to the Galleria in Hoover? Are you going to ride that bike up Red Mountain? It doesn't matter what gear you put the bike in, you're not going to make it up Red Mountain. I mean, there's plenty of things that we should think about as far as students at UAB. I could go on forever about it, but I think that my greatest learning experience with transit was when I worked at a nonprofit here in Birmingham called Youth Serve. And when I worked at that nonprofit, we had to use the transit system. The man who founded the nonprofit, Trent Ramsey, he used to say, we have to make the kids use the transit system so that they can learn about why we need transit reform in Birmingham. That was extremely progressive. And one thing that Trent made sure was that it was miserable. And I was a student in the camp, and ultimately I ended up being a counselor. But it was twice as bad when I was a counselor because then you had to deal with the nagging and you felt bad yourself. And I remember on hot summer days when we were standing out there, we spent the night overnight at the YWCA, and I remember on hot summer days standing out there and being at the bus stop. And have you ever stood at a bus stop and waited 3 hours before for a bus? Mm-hmm. Because I've waited 3 hours for a bus before, and that was one of the worst on a 95-degree day in the middle of the summer in Birmingham with all that black pavement reflecting the heat into your face, and you're waiting out there 3 hours and you're calling them and you're saying, where's the bus? And they're saying it'll be there in 15 minutes.
Or it's broke down, you have to get another.
And they say that 20 times before the bus gets there. And it's miserable. It really is. And when you sit there, you say, what if I had a job and I only could ride the bus to get to my job? It makes you think that. It makes you wonder, what if I had to depend on this bus system to get to work? You'd lose your job. You would not be able to depend on it. One group at the camp waited on the bus one time for 5 hours. 5 hours. I'm not exaggerating. There's people in this room who can verify that. They waited on the bus for 5 hours before it got there. And it's really an eye-opening experience because once you get on the bus, it can break down.
Yeah, that's where it does. Happens a lot to us. We waited on a bus about 9.5 hours one day. Me and We waited that morning, it broke down, then we had to wait on the bus till it got another one. That one broke down. By the time we got that afternoon, the other two were broke down again.
Exactly. You have to get on the bus, and then once you're on the bus, it might break down. That is a possibility. We waited one time for 2 hours on a bus, and once we sat down, we got on there, the air conditioning wasn't working. Of course, the windows don't even fully open. So you're sitting there trying to stick your face a little bit out the window, and it breaks down. And you just want to start crying. You just want to break down in tears. It's miserable. I mean, Birmingham is a place where we're a place where a lot of times I hear my classmates and I hear other citizens talk about how Birmingham is so far behind, and Birmingham this and Birmingham that, and it's always a lot of trash talk on Birmingham. Well, Birmingham ain't going to change unless we all do something about it. And it's one thing to get up here and talk, but unless we all go home and talk to our peers, our coworkers, or the people at our church, all of the different people we interact with on a day-to-day basis, nothing else is going to change about it. And a huge part of this for me is the class issue that's been brought up. The working class in Birmingham. I talked about what if you had to depend on the bus for a job, but when I drive down 280 every day, I always look and I see these working class people. They've been, at some grocery store or some restaurant. They've been working all day. They're tired, I'm sure, in the service industries that they're in, different industries, and they go outside, they go to this flimsy blue pole by 280 or something that you can't even lean on, it'll probably fall over. There's no covering to protect you from the rain. There's not even a bench. I see people all the time on 280, on 31, laying down in grass at the bus stop. That alone should show us how aggressive the transit system is. They hadn't even figured out you put benches at a bus stop yet. I mean, it's really hard for me to grasp the fact that the working class is being neglected so much in Birmingham and so badly. And I mean, there could be regulations that I don't know about, but it upsets me to think about the fact that these people don't even have somewhere to sit when they get off work, and then they got to get on a bus that could possibly break down before they go down 280.
In the freezing snow, we were sitting out there. We have none on either corner where we live. I live on the south side of Birmingham. We have no buses on any of the corners.
So that's something that we should all think about. Just that alone. And before I sit down, I mean, this is something that I'm really passionate about. I would love to be able to get on the mass transit that works and take it into Birmingham. I would love to be able to utilize transit. It creates jobs. It's something that would, economically help our city. You can't expand roads forever. You cannot expand roads forever. That's just redundant. It's not gonna work. It doesn't matter how many lanes you add. It's not gonna work forever. And another thing, as far as UAB students, we live in a city. This past year, we had 33% DUIs in traffic-related accidents. I'm sorry. And I'm not gonna talk like I know anything about drinking or anything because my parents are sitting right there. But to be completely honest, think about that. When I've been in other cities, in other major cities, if you're drinking, you get on the subway, you get on the bus, you can take it home. That's another aspect to think about. We could significantly reduce accidents, DUIs, people who've had too much to drink and then they think, well, I can't afford a taxi, I'm just going to have to brave it home.
Point a designated driver. That's what the police has been telling us to do. Want somebody who can drive for you if you're drunk.
And this is the thing, you don't always have a designated driver. People do not always have a designated driver. And UAB students drink, I can tell you that. And they do not always have designated drivers. We could reduce deaths. people losing their lives because they don't feel like they have any option but to get in their car and drive home. So we have an opportunity here tonight. We've all come together, obviously, to talk about the same thing with everything in focus, because we're all here for transit. So I would just like to say before I sit down that if we're going to do something, we have representatives here, people in our government who we can directly voice our problems and our concerns to. I think that it would be wise for us to all exchange information with them. If we don't have it, I think it would be wise for us to all make sure that we know who each other are before we leave, so that we can really make something happen. Because like I said, it's one thing to talk, but it's another thing to do. And this is a diverse room. There's a lot of people in here from different neighborhoods, from different areas, but what it boils down to is we're all Alabamians. And if we don't take our voices and make them heard in the areas that we're hailing from, it doesn't amount to anything. We have to make sure that we go and we talk to everybody we can about transit. This is something that I care about, because I would love to not have to drive. I mean, I think everybody in this room would love to reduce the amount that they have to drive. And I like driving. But it's time for Birmingham to catch up and start making progress alongside the rest of the nation for transit. And that would just start with reforming what we have now. And so thank you for letting me speak.
If you were in